Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, race fans everywhere. Welcome to this edition of the Burnin' Rubber Racing Podcast for Wednesday, February 5th, 2025. Sterling Price, joined by Justin Palmer and Hal Estep. The trio is back for this week. Good to have y'all here tonight. Wednesday, February 5th, 2025, the date for tonight. And we have a race in the books, not officially for points paying purposes, but, or at least for NASCAR Cup Series, but for us, we count it for points. This past weekend, NASCAR returned to Bowman Gray Stadium, the first Cup Series race at Bowman Gray in over 50 years. The last time they had a race, 1971. When for the longest time, we didn't know who actually won that race. And it was only last season, it was only just a few months ago, really, that a winner was determined, and Bobby Allison was officially granted the victory. A rather symbolic ceremony of sorts. Great to have Bobby finally get credit for that victory just a couple of weeks before he passed away. But NASCAR was back last weekend in Bowman Gray Stadium. And I'll be honest, they put on one heck of a show. There were a lot of questions surrounding this race, at least going into Sunday. How was this package going to race compared to what we'd seen from clashes in the past, primarily with the LA Coliseum? Would cars be able to race side by side with each other? Would guys be able to make passes on the track? And most importantly, one of the things that I myself was wondering, wait, hold up. What are HIG lights?
That was the question on your mind?
Well, yeah. What are HIG lights?
Understandable, actually. Yeah, what happened here, fellas?
Yeah. But anyway, those were that I was wondering, especially after the heat races from Saturday night. But nonetheless, I digressed. The race itself was actually pretty fun. Well, the last chance qualifier and the main event. And so were the heats. The heats were kind of like the teaser for what was to come on Sunday night, with Chase Elliott dominating from the pole. But it wasn't merely a runaway. There were three guys that were the class of the field. It was Chase Elliott, Denny Hamlin, and Ryan Blaney. And it was interesting because Denny Hamlin passed Chase Elliott late in the going before the halftime break of the main event, was able to get out front and stay out front up until the halfway point. But then once the field got back out there for the second half, post halftime break, whatever adjustments Alan Gustafson made to that 9 car, it became a rocket ship. And the 11 car just had nothing for him. And Ryan Blaney was able to work his way up through the field all night long. To be fair to Blaney, he didn't actually qualify for this race through the heats or the LCQ. He had to take a provisional for the start on this. Started shotgun on the field, 23rd, but he made it work. He made it all the way up to second, just couldn't quite get to Chase Elliott, who made an emphatic statement starting off the season with a victory, and a dominating one at that, in the main event for the Cookout Clash at Bowman Gray Stadium. This is something that, perhaps we need to start examining Chase Elliott a little more seriously for this season, because over the last couple of years, 2023 was kind of a mulligan year when he got hurt, wasn't really 100%, went winless that season. Then last year, for most of the year, he was kind of under the radar. Sure, he won at Texas, but he was just kind of, he went winless the rest of the year beyond that. But at the end of last season, he finished in the top 10, I think 3 races in a row to cap off the season, led a lot of laps too. Didn't make it to the championship 4, but he was quietly the most consistent driver in the Cup Series, having the best average finish of anybody. And now, starting off this season strong with a win in the Clash, he might be a force to be reckoned with come playoff time late in the going, perhaps. I mean, if they keep things on the right track, that is.
Yeah, he will put on a show at Bowman Gray, and let's get something straight. I did make a pick, even though I was not here to make picks. That pick was Chase Elliott, and I did a
Was
little
it the
bit.
wheel?
What's up?
Was it the wheel?
It was not the wheel, believe it or not. We're gonna do that
Wow.
points paying races this year. Only points paying races. It paid us points, but it did not pay Chase any points. That one actually required a little bit of research, and my research was who do good at short track? And I looked at that, and the answer was Chase Elliott. I think it was in the last 4 years since Next Gen started. He's consistently in the top 10, like so consistent, but never wins at them. He won, I think, one short track race in the last 4 years. I couldn't tell you which one it was. I was staring at a sheet in front of me and just said, "Well, let's go Chase." Um, but this is in his wheelhouse. He is very good at short tracks. He's not going to be the guy who you can call a short track ringer who goes out there, wins every time, but he will always be in the top 10. You'll always find the 9 car floating around, not having a bad enough day that they're stuck in behind the garage. Actually, they're almost never there, which is great for them. And that's kind of the calling card of Chase Elliott in the past few years, Mr. Consistency. If he can turn that into consistently competing for wins, oh yeah, we're going to be looking at Chase Elliott a lot differently than we did last year. Last year, I said if he could turn them into wins in the playoffs, he would be a championship contender. That didn't happen, so he wasn't one. But if he can get on that horse and get some wins early on and really keep that consistency going, he's going to be a force to be reckoned with, and he has the skill set that he can win just about everywhere. There's nowhere you look at Chase Elliott and go, "Ooh, he's not very good there." It's the same thing you say about his teammate Kyle Larson. There's no track you look at outside of Daytona for Kyle Larson where you go, "Ooh, Kyle Larson doesn't win there." So he's got what it takes. We can't underrate him. I always like to say NBC nothing but Chase for the over coverage of Chase Elliott, but he's over covered for two reasons. One, he's popular, and two, he has the skills to back it up. So this was kind of a showcase of that. It was one of those, I'd call it a y'all must have forgot moment because he is that good. Um, I will also say this race itself was very good. I enjoyed it for what it was because it lived up to what it is, which is Bowman Gray. And I sure did love that the restarts from halftime. That was hilarious to watch.
Well, it's always interesting coming out of halftime and to see what the guys were going to do and whether or not this race was going to turn into something similar as the last chance qualifier, but it never had the chance to. We ran more laps consistently under green in during the a final stretch of the race than in the LCQ, which is very impressive that everybody was able to keep it clean during the second half of the race. And that played right into Chase Elliott's hand. He was able to get out there or get by Hamlin and really dominated this race. Great changes by Gustafson and during the break to give Elliott exactly what he needed. And this is really the first time in, I would say, about 2.5 years where Chase Elliott has actually felt like, yeah, this was a Chase Elliott victory. This one was earned. That Texas win has always kind of felt a little bit flukish just because of the green white checkered. Obviously, we've mentioned 2023 due to the injury during the skiing accident. It never felt like Chase Elliott was winning races or at least dominating races. Morton did that this time. Goes out there and ends up just destroying the field. This time around, led an insane amount of laps. That's going to be a record that it's going to be very tough to beat at any Clash event, and let alone just percentage of a race. But this was Elliott's night. There was nobody who can really beat him. He started on pole, won his heat race, which was very important. And, you start out front at Bowman Gray, you're going to have a good shot running away with it. And to the credit of the drivers around him, they had a lot of passing opportunities. It just wasn't enough of to stop Elliott. And that was the best car all weekend, hands down. And I'll give credit where credit is due. I've been very critical of Chase Elliott. This is the first time I felt like he has been that guy from the year 2020 in his championships runs prior. I hadn't seen that the last 2.5 years. I saw it on Sunday, and that's a really good sign this year for Chase Elliott fans going into 2025.
It's a great sign. No doubt about it. And again, we feel like now we're starting to see Chase Elliott kind of what he was before the injury in 2023. And when you think about it, he's been a consistent driver, but he's also been somebody that before his injury a couple years ago, he was regularly competing in the championship four. He made appearances in the last round of the playoffs 4 years in a row, 2020, 21, and 22. And then he got hurt in 23, and that kind of threw things off for a bit. But we're starting to see kind of what he was, pre-broken leg in 2023, which jokingly was caused by Ross Chastain at the snowbanks in Utah, or Colorado. I kid. He did break his leg, but Chastain didn't cause it. That's just a meme that happened a while ago. Anyway, Chase Elliott, good to see him running well. There were some other incidents that happened that caught a lot of attention. It was a lot of bonkers racing. Bowman Gray, the nickname for Bowman Gray Stadium is the Madhouse, and for good reason. It brought the madness. It brought the chaos. And, some fans may not be big fans of it, no pun intended. But, in NASCAR racing, there's a place for both. There's a place for some good, hard, clean racing, which we did see some examples of it at Bowman Gray. It was just hard to find. But there's also a place for chaos. I like chaos to an extent. It depends on where it is. For Bowman Gray, I want chaos. We got chaos. We got quite a bit of it. And we also got some instances where I remember during the last chance qualifier, there was one incident. Actually, there were a couple incidents that got my attention. But one was involving Burt Myers and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Now, Myers and Stenhouse had been racing each other pretty hard for several laps. But Myers, I think, was complaining that there was some problems with his steering. Not sure that this was what caused it, but coming out of turn 4 on one of the laps, Myers and Stenhouse were racing each other hard, and then Myers appeared to just hang a left coming out of turn 4 right into the path of Ricky Stenhouse Jr. And that sent Myers across the infield grass and then hard into the turn 1 wall, just killed his car. That's probably as hard a hit as he's taken in his career, maybe even harder than what he's used to in the modifieds that he drives. But Burt Myers, hard crash into the wall. Thankfully, he was okay, was able to climb out. The thing is, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., I think he got unfairly blamed for this because, Stenhouse has a reputation of kind of running into guys. And what he did at the Chili Bowl last month certainly didn't help.
No.
It wasn't really even his fault. I think it was more a case of Myers just caught sideways off the corner or something went wrong with the car and it just pulled him, caused Myers to hang a dead left in front of Stenhouse, and where Stenhouse just had no choice, but there was contact made. It didn't stop the Bowman Gray fans from showing him how he's number one. And no, I'm not going to play the clip on here, but Noah Lewis had a excellent video of this of the fans just showing their approval of Ricky Stenhouse Jr., showing him he's number one, which is amazing, by the way. But it also shows just how much the fans love Burt Myers. Myers, of course, a regular competitor at Bowman Gray, along with Tim Brown, who unfortunately did not make it out of the last chance qualifier into the main event. But there was that incident that happened. You also had Eric Jones, who was actually running pretty well in the LCQ, and then just they all ran out of room going for the win in the LCQ. But Yeah, he didn't. He unfortunately got spun around, did not make it. Ty Gibbs also had an incident with Justin Haley late in the going, and I believe we have footage of that incident now.
We do.
That I will pull up here. Ty Gibbs, he became the first driver to go airborne in 2025 with this incident. So he got into it with Justin Haley, got spun around. Gibbs wanted to let Haley know what he thought of it, so he comes up alongside him, and look at him just launch himself in the air at what, 30, 40 miles an hour, if even.
It wasn't in something where you're going to be feeling good in the morning with that. That is, I get what he was trying to do. He was trying to do the good old fashioned door swipe that you see at Bowman Gray all the time. And trust me, this place is notorious for fights, notorious for action, notorious for chaos. But we got the full spectrum at Bowman Gray this year. When you go to a short track here, you're going to get fights and chaos, or you're going to get very long runs until that caution comes out, or the checkered flag. We got a little bit of it both in the LCQ and in the main event. I get what Ty Gibbs was trying to do there. Just executed it very, very horribly. And, we know now that NASCAR is going to have a conversation with Ty Gibbs over this incident. I'm sure that they both loved and hated it at the same time. Loved it in terms of, this is going to be promo material for the next 5 years. And hated it because Ty Gibbs is the first one testing out NASCAR's new policies about suspensions and all that. This did not warrant any of that, nor am I suggesting that should, but this is one of those, yeah, that happened. It's Bowman Gray. What do you expect? And Ty Gibbs got his cage rattled.
I was going to say, it's a case of Bowman Gray, what do you expect? And it's Ty Gibbs, what do you expect? He got turned. And again, here's the thing is I loved what they would keep saying on the broadcast, which was, Bowman Gray is never the guy who actually hit you's fault. It's probably the guy behind him who hit him into you. And that was probably the case here, which you can show the replay. You'll still probably miss the guy in the back of him, probably getting into Justin Haley. No one really had any control over who they hit. It just kind of happened throughout the night, and you hoped your spotter made sure you were cooled down before you came back around to try to get your revenge. In this case, that didn't happen. I'm not surprised considering the parties involved that it ended up this way. Ty Gibbs had a good run in the Cup Series and not getting mad at people. I guess he's getting it out of his system before this regular season starts. I hope. And, yeah, we got to test what the car does when you try to smack somebody at a low speed. Turns out they did not account for that with the how aerodynamic it is. I did not expect to see that car get as high as it did for such a low speed incident. And little bit troubling. I don't think we're going to see many incidents at that low of a speed either. So let's not test that one again, fellas. Turns out it might be better for you to not do that. I don't think it warrants a suspension, a fine even, I don't know, because you listen here, it's the Clash. You're so happy something happened at the Clash that was worth replaying. That was nice to see. But like you said, classic Bowman Gray. I'm surprised no one got in a fist fight by the end of the night, to be honest with you. I'm a little disappointed by that.
I too must admit I'm a little disappointed. If anything, what I was really surprised by, we had drivers beating and banging on each other all night long, even in the heat races, where with Kyle Busch and Justin Haley going at it with each other. We even had in the LCQ, we had brothers going against each other. We had Ty Dillon versus Austin Dillon in the last chance qualifier, which I did not expect, but they were racing each other really, really hard.
Well, and I was even thinking, and prior to the start of the LCQ, it's like, oh, great, we got both Dillon brothers in this race. I remember what happened a few years ago, all the way at the Clash of the Coliseum, and Ty Dillon having to go into the LCQ and racing his way in. I think anybody who watched that initial race remembers that, and it was the entire field who was doing it. It wasn't just as guys who were, back markers or Bowman Gray regulars, which was great to see those guys there, even though the results didn't go their way. It was guys who were in championship fights or championship contenders doing it. Kyle Larson got at the bumper involved. Ty Gibbs got the bumper involved. Everybody was putting the bumper to each other. And at the end of it, you're just shaking your head going, these guys are really going out there for 2 spots and putting it all on the line. And in the end, it was a track I didn't expect we see passing. The heats kind of indicated to me that the passing would be very difficult. Oh, Kyle Larson came from what, 10th or 12th in the LCQ to win it to race his way in. Josh Berry was the other guy who raced his way in. Huge momentum for Wood Brothers. And of course, Ryan Blaney said, I've got the provisional here. I don't need to run this race. I'm out, boys. I'm just going to test the car. And that worked out well for him because he was able to rally all the way from 23rd to 2nd in the main event.
Yeah. Speaking of Josh Berry, he was, I mean, his car was red and it was, it felt almost like a bull in a china shop. That car was running into guys all throughout the LCQ to get in there.
You can say the same for Carson Hocevar in the main event. He was involved in what, 4 or 5 incidents on the night?
Sure felt like it.
You know, I don't want to say that every short track race should be like this, but would it kill you guys to do this more often during the points paying races? You know, put the bumper to somebody, get them out of the way, pass at all at some of these tracks? I mean, I know it's Bowman Gray and it's more encouraged there, but it felt like this was a race that kind of showed what we're usually missing when we're mad at a short track race. It's missing this. It's missing this kind of intensity. And it was weird to say intensity about the Clash, but it felt like there really was a good intensity. That's what all I could think about when Ty Dillon and Austin Dillon were beating and banging all the way down through, felt like first 3 laps of the last chance qualifier. I was sitting there going, Ty, you are costing both of you positions. It's awesome. Keep doing it. It was really entertaining. It was kind of enthralling to see brothers go at it, especially. But the last chance qualifier kind of set the tone for Sunday night that this is going to be a little different than the heats. It's going to be a lot different, and we're going to be actually showing you what Bowman Gray is. Next gen car be damned. We're not going to use that as an excuse this week. We're going to go out there and give you a show.
Well, not only that, but I also think a huge part of this was the tires. And I know we were bringing this tire conversation again, but the tires, as it felt like, actually mattered in the main event. It didn't really matter in the LCQ all that much. It was 75 laps. You could kind of burn yourself up. But in the LCQ or in the main event, you kind of had to use up your stuff. And for Ryan Blaney, at the end of the race, it was like when he was catching in Chase Elliott for a good bit there. But then he just kept falling off and falling off and falling off. There was a couple of lap traffic cars that got in the way, but it never felt like he was going to get there because he burned up all of his stuff. He burnt up the tires. He burnt up the equipment. And, you know, I will give credit where credit is due. Going from 23rd to 2nd at Bowman Gray of all tracks is a Herculean effort, and praise should be given to Ryan Blaney for that. But the equipment mattered, and Chase Elliott, guys like Dane Hamlin, Chase Elliott, Joey Logano, guys who were able to manage their stuff, guys who have grown up doing that, those were the guys who excelled. Guys even like SVG, who finished 8th in this race, did a very good job of managing their stuff, kept the car clean, and by the end of the race, they were there at the end. And big shout out to him, as well as Bubba Wallace, who ended up finishing, I believe, top 5, and with Logano coming in 4th.
Yeah, our picks from to win this race, what we ended up doing. Hal obviously picked Chase Elliott to win, and that worked out really well. Justin, I know you picked Ryan Blaney. That was 2nd, and Logano ended up finishing 4th. So overall, we did pretty well with our picks. So 1st, 2nd, 4th, not bad.
Near perfect weekend for us. If only one of us, if only you picked Dane Hamlin, we could have gotten the sweep.
Yeah, we could have. I know we did a sweep last year, but it wasn't quite meant to be. But still, overall, really solid weekend for NASCAR and for Bowman Gray Stadium. You know, I looked at the TV ratings, they were around 3 million viewers, which, considering the marketing that NASCAR had for this race, or rather the lack of marketing, like I did not see a single ad on TV for Bowman Gray Stadium, or even online. I didn't see any ads for this. But for Bowman Gray, which is a much, much smaller market than Los Angeles, where the Clash has been held the last 3 years, for that to get not quite to LA viewership numbers, but still get pretty high up there. I mean, LA, I think the first year had 3.7. Then 2023, it had 3.5. Last year was kind of a mulligan because that race got moved to Saturday at the last minute, but that was a 1.8. This year, it was a 3.0 with little to no marketing behind it. It still worked pretty well for Bowman Gray Stadium. And I also just gained a new appreciation for Bowman Gray and the history behind that race. I was actually able to watch the modified race that was, modifieds, they race there regularly at Bowman Gray. But they had they had a 100, I'm trying to remember how many laps there were in the race. I think it was 125 or 150 laps on Saturday for the modified race there. You had guys like Burt Myers, his son Slate Myers was also racing in this event. Tim Brown was competing. You also had some regulars on the modified circuit. Even some other guys that have taken up modifieds as a hobby. Bobby Labonte, Ryan Preece, he a former modified champ himself, was in this race. You also had some other names that you may recognize. Trey Hutchins, he competes time to time on the truck series, but his family has roots really deep around Winston-Salem and the Bowman Gray area. That was something really nice to see. And the race itself was a caution fest, but it was still amazing to see the guys just really throw it all out there, give it everything they had to win this race. It was fun. It was a really fun race to see. And concerning if there's any rivalries that come of this race, if there's any beef that goes on between drivers that carries over, I don't think it's going to carry over quite like, I don't know, like say Kendrick Lamar or Drake. But it's
all right, you calm down with that right now.
Hey, whoa.
I mean, I don't think it'll carry over, but it was still fun to have while it was there.
Oh, it was absolutely a blast. I would say this was a triple for NASCAR. It's a rounding third triple, where you get called back at the very end, and I think the long run at the end, and it's going to be kind of that was all right to some people, mad for others, but this was an excellent event for everything but the marketing. This was an excellent event. Bowman Gray put on a show. NASCAR really showed that they cared for this place. They've got now the safer barriers. Those are going to become permanent at the racetrack. They got rid of the fencing after the race, which is okay. And I guess we got to go back to regular Bowman Gray now for that. But, everybody there seemed like they had a good time. Everybody just driving there seemed like they were having fun out there. It felt like a local race. And as far as a year two to this, I'm on board. I'm on board for a year two. I want to see year two here. But the one thing that just irks me is I know this race could have been much better in terms of the marketing, because people in Winston-Salem didn't know that this was happening. I mean, I remember looking at, and I got shared this as one person on Reddit was saying it sounded like a bunch of chainsaws on Sunday night, and they had no idea what was going on. And the thing is this race was not marketed well at all. And if this was marketed, I think this race could have been almost on par with LA. But I know that was not going to happen with this one. How?
Yeah, it seems like Fox is using all of its marketing for NASCAR on some very subpar Daytona 500 ads. I'm still waiting for those to get better. But it seems like that's all they've been marketing. And I get it. It's the start of the regular season, it's the Daytona 500. But it's not the start of your NASCAR programming. You have programming beforehand that you can absolutely market better. Um, Unfortunately, a time of the year with the Clash, I don't think it's ever going to get the marketing it deserves. Because at the same time, we got the Super Bowl going on, and that's going to be the be all end all of all marketing until it's over. And then after that, you've got the Daytona 500 the week after, and the week before the Super Bowl, we had the Clash this year. And the problem is, you're already kicked into the marketing for the Super Bowl and Daytona 500. You're going to have a hard time getting any executives on board with, can we direct some of our budget towards the Clash? And they'll probably look at last year's ratings and go, why would I do that when we have another NASCAR race in 2 weeks that's a bigger deal? That's the real problem, and you can't turn the Clash into as big of a deal even close. I don't like that they gave us basically no marketing. I don't like that, but I also understand I don't think that changes no matter where you put it. I like it in Bowman Gray because Bowman Gray put on a good show, and that's what you really want is that even if you don't market it, if you can put on a good enough show, people will be tuning in next year thinking, well, hope there's as much beating and banging as there was last year. Hope there's as much rough racing as there was last year. That's what's going to get people keep tuning in next year because what you don't want to have happen is what happened with the Clash at Coliseum, which was, okay, the novelty is worn off and I don't care. Bowman Gray's novelty has not worn off in as long as we've been running races there, so I don't think that's going to be the issue. The issue would be if the quality of the race dropped off, and again, it's something about the Madhouse when they get in there, they turn it into the Madhouse. So, um, I hope that next year they might see something in it from this year that makes them market more towards it. Because the other part is you don't really have footage to show from Bowman Gray. You don't have any modern footage. You're not going to use modified footage in a NASCAR promo package. So I think they can use what they got this year, especially Ty Gibbs, who they are probably going to be shaking hands with, clapping hands, looking at him, going, "Thank you. You just gave us next year's Clash promo package."
Yeah.
And it'll be good to have excuse me. It'll be good to have the Clash at Bowman Gray again. I mean, I would love to see Bowman Gray hold another NASCAR Cup race. Something that Jordan Bianchi of The Athletic wrote down in his article, kind of summarizing the aftermath and thinking of the future of the Clash and what to do with it. NASCAR has gone on record saying they want to go race internationally. They want to go race in other countries. Brazil, in particular, has been thrown out as a possibility. One of the ideas that Bianchi kind of put out there, just as a thought, as of what to do, use the Clash as kind of an exhibition. I mean, it already is an exhibition race, but use the Clash as an opportunity to go other places, expand internationally, throw it out in front of other markets that may not know much about NASCAR. I mean, they did it once with LA. Now they're looking at expanding internationally, going other places, putting NASCAR in front of audiences that may not get NASCAR on a regular basis, and then using the All-Star race as kind of a grassroots take on NASCAR, throwing them back on short tracks, throwing it back to how NASCAR drivers cut their teeth on the racing circuits growing up. We get it already with North Wilkesboro, but perhaps keep Bowman Gray in the rotation as a future All-Star venue, or looking at other places like Hickory Motor Speedway in North Carolina, maybe the Rockingham Speedway for the future. Something to keep in mind for NASCAR to consider for the All-Star race and for the Clash going forward.
Well, and I think that gets into a larger conversation, and I'm not sure we're going to have this conversation tonight, but we have a lot of good tracks on this NASCAR circuit. The quality of tracks is not lacking. And we're at the point of the schedule now where we're starting to have to make some tough decisions in regards to the schedule, because we've pretty much cut out most of the fat with the mile and a half. There's not many mile and a half tracks left that we could take a day away from. We still got Vegas, we still got Kansas and all that, but that those have been at least been able to put on quality racing to where it might deserve to keep those 2 dates. You're running out of spaces on the calendar. Or you don't touch the super speedways, you don't touch the current short tracks in terms of their quality quantity, because they really don't have that many of those types of tracks. So we're getting into that situation. Do I want to see a track like North Wilkesboro get a points paying race? Yes. Do I want to see Rockingham potentially get a points paying race? Yes. But when I start adding up the math, it's starting to get to the point where we're going to have more than 36 events on this calendar, and some tough decisions are going to be made, because now I think Bowman Gray could be an event like the All-Star Race, or a track like Old Hickory, or any other track, local short track, Pensacola, as an example. This is where it's starting to hit the road here. And, I like the idea of expanding internationally. Brazil, though, is going to have a lot of logistical issues. It's the only time of the season that you really could go to Brazil. I would hope the teams would have some sort of pay incentive to go down there, or otherwise, because of all the logistical issues with transporting all that cargo down to Brazil from Charlotte. But other than that, it's a very interesting spot NASCAR's in, because the number of tracks they have is more than the number of dates they can realistically put on a calendar.
It's a good problem to have. It's a really good problem to have when you suddenly have enough, let's put it this way, capable tracks that you can put out there, and people want to see the races there. And then you have to make tough choices, and I still believe that some choices shouldn't be so tough. There are some tracks with 2 dates that don't need 2 dates in some cases, but that's further down the line right now. As you said, there was the whole Brazil idea, which is, again, an idea. I hope the financial incentive is very big, because that is a long trip to make, all the way down to the heart of South America, which is even farther than going down in the heart of Mexico, which I already think is going to be a logistical issue in itself. It's a bold move. We'll see how that one ages, because I really think NASCAR needs to think long and hard about going on the fast track to international races. This is something I think you need to prepare a lot longer for. Mexico City's one thing, Brazil's another. Brazil needs a long preparation, because it is so far away. I cannot express to you how far away it is. And here's what happens when you fast track going to Brazil. The week 1 game that the Packers and Eagles had, where travel there for the players was a bad time. It was not something they could really do without having an escort. And secondly, they didn't have what they needed to have prepared there, aka the field. And we saw Jordan Love go down for weeks because of it. Now, this is different. It's NASCAR. But I don't want to see what the equivalent of that is in a lack of preparation for a street course race or whatever you have go on down there. You do have places you can go race already prepared, but I'm going to hope we're going to one of those instead of something that they need to prepare ahead of time.
Well, it's got to be Interlagos.
I'd hope so. I would hope so.
Yeah. I mean, you have to go to Interlagos. There's no other place that can really do it and put on a quality rate. We know what Interlagos is. We know what it's capable of. We've seen the conversion of NASCAR tracks and F1 tracks. It has worked, although NASCAR is moving away from the Formula or the international circuit at the Circuit of the Americas. But it works. And again, it's a logistical nightmare, and it's one that they're going to have to consider. They're going to have to weigh their options, and I don't want to rush that decision. Obviously, we have seen the rumors of Saudi Arabia as well, and that being a potential market down the line. That is not a 2 years from now thing, but that has been something that we do have to consider. Is NASCAR is willing to push these 2 new markets? Could we see something like a Suzuka be run again? And NASCAR did it back in the 90s. is, and that was a huge promotional success. Could that be the Clash as years down the road? We don't know, but it's something that we're going to have to consider when making these decisions with the Clashes and what do we want in terms of growing the sport. Because unfortunately, NASCAR still has the reputation of being the American-based sport that turns left. That is still going to be the perception of an international audience. And we also do have to keep in mind, the logistics of all that, the team preparation, and as well, another unfortunate circumstance, the NFL. If they're moving to 18 games a year, if they're moving to an 18-game regular season in the playoffs, then we're starting to talk about the Daytona 500 having issues. So it's a lot to consider for NASCAR with these international events, as well as if they keep it local side. In my opinion, it should be Bowman Gray for another year. I'm not ready to give that up yet, but I almost feel like maybe year 2 when we're done, I'm with it. I'm not getting this, oh yeah, we could do this 3 years and we'll be fine. I vibe out Bowman Gray unless the marketing is there to back it up. And I don't think let me clarify. I don't think there's going to be much, but I think because Fox is not going to have the Super Bowl next year, it's going to be a lot more.
Hopefully, one can hope. But after all, they did title a video "Higlights" on YouTube, so I am a little skeptical, but I hope they will clean it up. And also, on the subject of Fox Sports, while we're talking about it, the booth was fine. I mean, Mike Joy still does good. Clint Boyer, Kevin Harvick, aside from all of the insert Gen Alpha humor here and there, which was funny initially. Now I'm like, I don't know. But I mean, it can work in the right moments. My one thing that I will beg of Fox Sports to do, please get some microphones on the crowd. Please. NBC does a great job of that. I mean, we heard it in the Indy 500 last season when that was covered by NBC Sports. We also heard it at the Daytona race when Harrison Burton passed Kyle Busch on the last lap. They got sound from the crowd. There were times where Kevin Harvick and Clint Boyer, one of them would be saying, man, the crowd goes wild. And we would hear nothing. I mean, we would hear the cars and the engine sounds. We heard nothing from the crowd. Get some mics on the crowd. Incorporate that sound, please.
Dangerous proposition at Bowman Gray. Hey, first off,
still, I would go for it.
And that is a dangerous proposition. And because unfortunately, Fox X has this thing that they have to adhere to called the FCC. And from the hours that the Clash was running, they are not in this thing called Safe Harbor. So they are, I mean, unfortunately, Hal knows this all too well because of WWE. It's better to keep the crowd mics muted, especially on a track like Bowman Gray.
I don't care. Get the sound of the crowd cheering. That's all I want.
I agree with you on that. I do think that needs to be incorporated, but you are playing a dangerous game there.
But I know it's a dangerous game. I know it's Bowman Gray. Get us the sound.
So on your first note there about WWE, they don't have an excuse. They're on Netflix and USA Network. Cable does not adhere to the FCC. They adhere to sponsors, which is more. I was
talking about the Fox days. Come on now.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, you're right, but not anymore. And also, I've just caught the highlights usually. But for that being said, for the races that are on FS1 this year, I hate that my shoulder's disappearing right now. For the races that are on FS1, there are no excuses why we can't have crowd mics other than sponsorship, which is the lifeblood of our sport, so I understand. But also, come on. Come on, we're going to these tracks. We're not on network TV. There's no reason why we can't have mics in those stands at least. But also, if you're going to go to Bowman Gray, I don't care. I'm with Sterling on this one. I really don't care if it's a dangerous game. We know what we're signing up for here. Hey, 7-second delay guy, have your finger on the button and be ready.
Yeah, exactly. Have the finger on the button in just in case. It's not like it's likely that it's going to happen. I mean, sure, if it's any place where it's going to happen, it's probably Bowman Gray, but still, have them be prepared, and incorporate the sound in there. I think what frustrates me is that they didn't have the sound here at the smallest track NASCAR goes to. And also, they have camera angles that zoom in way too close, and they miss stuff on NASCAR's smallest track. But
again, that's up again, TV talk here. That is expected. It is tougher to cover a short track than it is a wider track. That is true because of the panning that the cameramen have to do. That is something. However, my biggest complaint wasn't the crowd mics. Those stupid graphics look even worse this year somehow. The driver graphics. Oh my.
I would hope that the Super Bowl is going to serve as kind of an introduction to a new graphics package that doesn't incorporate the superhero graphic comic looks.
It's going to be better. It's going to be an animated version of the players out there doing animated celebrations because they scored a touchdown. How's that sound? Like Madden?
I don't think, and you got at NASCAR drivers doing mocap suits at Media Day this year.
They just need one of them to do it for everybody. Don't worry.
So Carson Hocevar and
yes.
All right.
Yes, it doesn't matter if they are Tyler Reddick sized or larger. They're going to do the same thing and be the same size on the screen.
Sorry, I just had a random thought of like, can you imagine Carson Hocevar and Tyler Reddick in like one of those illusion rooms? No, I think it just broke Hal.
This would have to be some sort of sponsor would have to do that, and maybe we can. You know what? And Xfinity's a big sponsor with 23XI in these days. Maybe they can help out with that.
Yeah, maybe they can. I mean, have Carson Hocevar run a few races and have them, say, we're running as fast as Xfinity Internet or whatever the Xfinity series tells them to do. But they won't have to tell them for very long because after this season, the NASCAR Xfinity series will, for lack of better terms, no longer be the NASCAR Xfinity series. Xfinity has announced that they are ending their title sponsorship of the NASCAR Grand National Touring Division, the National Series. At least that's the way I refer to them without trying to avoid saying a sponsor. Basically, NASCAR's number 2 series to the Cup Series. Xfinity will be leaving their title sponsorship after the 2025 season is done. That does not mean that they are leaving NASCAR altogether. They've announced that they are going to increase their presence as a premier partner for NASCAR's Cup Series. They've been a premier partner for the Cup Series since NASCAR switched to this business model for their Cup Series title sponsorship in 2020. They had the 4 premier partners. You had Coca-Cola, Busch Beer, Xfinity, and Geico. Now it's just 3 premier partners since Geico left, I think, before last season. But Xfinity is going to increase their involvement with the Cup Series, at least on the premier partnership level. They'll also be sponsoring a new way to score points in a NASCAR race. This is something that will take effect across not just the Xfinity series, but all 3 national touring series. Basically, they're going to start giving out points for whoever gets the fastest lap. And if I'm correct, if I read it correctly, it's 1 point, 1 bonus point that I'll give out to whoever gets the fastest lap.
Yes, it is. So, also got to do a couple of clarifications here. Geico ended their partnership at the end of last season. You even saw at the Bronx 24, they had all the paint from the NASCAR races still in that turn and won, and like they had all of them lined up, but Geico was the one and third or down, and it was painted over. So obviously they were not going to be involved this year or with it. That made sense. Xfinity, on the other hand, in terms of the Xfinity series, that was on borrowed time. It was actually supposed to be last year where Xfinity was going to leave as the title sponsor of the secondary series, the AAA equivalent of NASCAR, and they actually extended it out for one more year. So this is a padded year for the Xfinity series. They were very fortunate for NASCAR to get that involved because we didn't know going into the second half of last year what the title sponsor was going to be for or the I guess Grand National Series, but that's now going to be done after 2025. There will be a new title sponsor. Maybe it could be a Busch series again. And since Busch is another premier partner of NASCAR, but the fastest lap point. I think this is going to be more about, and this is going to be a tough to elaborate, but I think this is going to be more on the TV partners to get this right than it is going to be on NASCAR to get this right. Because you have to show who got the fastest lap. In Formula One, they show the fastest lap all the time. They show who took the fastest lap. They have that at purple timer or next to the guy who had it. When it changes, they have that pop up in the upper or corner of the bug where it says this driver's lap and its lap time. That is something that has happened. If they are not able to present who has the fastest lap, that's where things get into trouble. Because as if you can't show that, then people are going to be confused of who has points, who don't have points. And we've seen how often 1 point has been the be all end all of things. And I get a little annoyed. And this is kind of my final point before I switch it to how. I get a little annoyed when NASCAR says, oh, we're not going to make any minor changes to the system. And then they add a point out of nowhere or to their point standings. And it's just like, what the heck, guys? I thought we said we were not going to do any minor changes this year. This qualifies as a minor change to your point system.
This is going to be a real pain to follow for anybody if they try to do the purple timer, because that's going to be hilarious to watch it in the first 5 laps change a million times. And then throughout the rest of the race, you're probably lost track because you're tired of following that little thing around because, oh my God, it just keeps moving. This is easier to do for Formula One, and I'm going to give you why, is because those tracks are really big and laps don't happen very often. Over a minute. That's how long you have to wait. At Bristol, we're going to have a lap every 18 seconds. And you're going to tell me you're going to follow who has the fastest one throughout 500 laps? Have fun. Have fun, everybody. The fastest lap thing I've always thought was just very difficult to implement in NASCAR. And if you had done this about 20 years ago, it would literally not matter because how many points do we throw out during a race? We do not care about this 1 point you just threw out. Now it's a little more of an issue because we've seen how critical 1 point can be in the current point standings, and that's going to be a huge deal if it becomes a talking point later on. My big thing is following that and figuring out who has the fastest lap. You know who's really going to care about that the most? Xfinity, who's sponsoring this lap and wants you to tell everybody Xfinity's fastest lap point goes to blank. And well, you can't do that till the end of the race. And to be honest, it's going to be the biggest footnote in the world after the race because somebody just won and we don't care about the fastest lap if he didn't get it. So that's going to be tough for everybody to get what they want out of this. Xfinity leaving the Xfinity series. I also second Busch. We went back to the Craftsman Truck series. Give me the Busch series back. So I think we could get back to the old days, and then Winston can stay off of the cup cars. We are not going back to the tobacco products.
No, they're Winston. We're past the age where Winston would be welcome back.
Do we allow bad question? Do they allow sponsorship for Juuls? This is a legitimate question. E-cigarettes, can they sponsor cars?
I mean, I think
they technically they can, but there needs to be like some major disclaimers on the car.
right, because Kyle Busch's car has the nicotine sponsorship.
Uh-oh. If Winston has one of those, we might open the door again for that product to be the title sponsor. That will never happen, but I'm just saying it could in some crazy universe.
I don't think any cigarette company is making headway with Gen Z. Now, vapes, on the other hand, that might be a different story.
Well, I know like Views has been a sponsor for, at least on the IndyCar side of things, they've been a sponsor for Arrow McLaren for a good bit. And I think they even sponsor their Formula One team from time to time. But Views has been on, it was on Alexander Rossi's car, I think the last couple of years with Arrow McLaren. But they also have like disclaimers on the car about Views saying, you know, don't like this product is a tobacco product or something along those lines. Yeah. And I don't think in the corporate world of 2025 in the United States, or really just anywhere in the world, that a tobacco or electronic cigarette company would be I'm not sure a lot of people would be too keen to have a company like that sponsoring a major racing series.
I have one final point here, and we can get back on track because I just threw us off of the track by a lot. That Zone nicotine pouch that is sponsoring Kyle Busch this year is owned by ITG Brands, which owns Winston Cigarettes. So
there you go.
We'll have the ITG Winston Cup Series in about 5 years.
Also, now that I thought about it, guess, you know, we talked about the Winston Cup Series, how, you know, Winston Cigarettes, Winston Tobacco, they sponsored the Cup Series way back when. Guess where they're based? Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
Yes,
home of Bowman Gray Stadium.
Tied it back to the track. We're back on the track. There we go.
We're back at the track again. But I guess the other thing that it could be kind of analyzed here is, okay, we've added the 61st point now, right? Hey, we've now, the maximum number of points prior to this was 60. It was a nice even number. Now we've added a 61st point.
Yeah, now I disagree with this completely because that just upsets me.
Like, right. And now you're starting to think, okay, are we going to start thinking about adding a point for qualifying on the pole? Are we thinking about adding a point for leading a lap like we used to? What about the most laps led? And like we've done that in the past where, you know, Carl Edwards back in 2011 going into the Homestead race scored max points, but the victory and the win was still worth 3 more points for Stewart, which got us into the tiebreaker. Yeah. Are we starting to tweak it to where that can come back? And okay, how does that add value for the win? How does that add value for, you know, 40th? And again, fastest lap is going to change throughout the race. And I don't see like teams going in and pitting and trying to, you know, manipulate the race is in order to screw another team out of a point or anything like that. NASCAR is very fluid, and there is a very specific window for each track where that fastest lap can be achieved. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this point gets implemented, but it's also going to be one of those things where if it comes down to the end of the year, we now have to consider that as a point. I still think in terms of our scale, because on our scale, we've kind of universally accepted that it's 5 times how many races left to go, plus 5 for each of the restrictor plate tracks remaining, is the margin of gap that you need to be in to, you know, be safe or to be out or to be on the bubble. This extra point could be a difference for a couple of drivers throughout the year, but it's one of those things where we've opened up this can of worms again, where people are now going to start asking about laps, about most laps led and poles. How
I am not looking forward to that. The only thing that could make this redeemable for me in terms of everything taking away my even 60 points is if during the Fox broadcast, every time somewhere random during the race, they just go, "Hey, Clint, who's got the fastest lap?" like with that warning, because then he's got to scramble and go, God, who has the fastest lap? Oh no.
No, knowing Clint, he'll be like, "Oh boy, I gotta check on this. You know, did you see those little kids in the stands? Okay, anyway, I gotta look and see where all this is at." Having to listen to Clint Boyer scramble to find the fastest lap is, oh, that's gonna be funny.
Well, and what happens when you have a quick off there? Because Formula One has a lot of pad time at the end where they don't have to worry about getting off the air for ESPN at the very least. ESPN kind of allows them to go with the podium celebration and all of that.
So with a quick off air, I don't think, I mean,
you're going to even have time to do that without just elaborating by saying, oh yeah, this guy got the fastest lap when you're showing up the standings page, if you even show the standings page at all at the end of the broadcast. I worry about the timing of that. And I mean, could you possibly do that to fill the ad time when the guys are crossing the finish line? I mean, that's, the driver reports to do the donut celebration and the front stretch interview. Are you even going to interview the fastest lap guy? Like, how are you going to present this?
I feel like they would probably, that's the other thing. Now you're bringing up a lot of questions that I don't think we're going to know the answers to tonight, but
we're not
like with this, I feel like it's a case of they could mention who got the fastest lap. I don't know if they probably would interview them, but it probably wouldn't be on air. If
right.
They would probably record an interview with them, ask about it, and then on a highlights show or whatever they use for it, they would throw it on there. But like, it's one extra point. If you're there are cases where you could finish 25th and record the fastest lap.
Yeah.
So like, good for them, but at the same time, at least they've got that. But aside from the fastest lap, if you're finishing 25th, there's not really much else good to talk about for the race.
Not really, but it's an interesting can of worms that has been opened up with this, as is kind of the wording of, or at least it's the wording of what NASCAR has done today with the rule book. I know we don't have it in our agenda, but we do have some clarification to the OEM punishments, as well as some of the procedures when it comes to performance obligation is the proper terminology. And real quick, also should mention, if the fastest lap is a tie, it is going to go to the highest finisher. So if two drivers have the similar lap in the 10,000ths, more than likely that's not going to happen, but it has happened in the past. It would go to the highest finisher of the race. So that is something to keep in mind there.
All right. Well, yeah. So there was also, I mean, you have the fastest lap point that they're doing. There's also, I gotta glance back at the agenda. Talked about the increasing their partnership with the Premier Partnership. Justin, I know you mentioned the other rule clarifications for the like in terms of manipulating the outcome of a race. Yeah. Not, I mean, if there's anything more you want to elaborate on that.
It's they basically added, they had a couple of word clarifications and took out some wording in regards to 5.5, but there is an extra sentence added to the end. Prohibited actions include, but not limited to, intentionally planning or conduct that prioritizes objectives other than achieving the best possible competitive result for their team. That is now in there. That is the clause. So NASCAR has now officially added that of what they're looking for with this race manipulation stuff. And the OEM penalties NASCAR has now the right to determine if the OEMs have violated that. And this can include manufacturer points from 25 to 30 points, loss of 30 to 60 hours of wind tunnel testing, loss of runs or RCFD runs, that's 200 to 500, and loss of vehicle testing, which is going to be 2 to 4 hours of possible time lost there. So just a couple of specifications and rules on that front. Obviously, we've known these changes have been coming. It is now just officially in the rule book, and this is what NASCAR is going to have going forward. How?
I just hope that we don't have to even think about this come Martinsville.
I don't. I want to see this again. I really don't.
This is a rule where I kind of want it to be as strict as possible and also never come into play ever. Thank you very much. Everyone stop screwing around at Martinsville.
Or just stop screwing around in general. Doesn't matter where the penultimate race or the cutoff race is, just don't do it.
And now you've reminded me that Talladega's in the round of 8 again this year. Great.
That's okay. Everybody can wreck there, and I can't call it manipulation. I just call it a funny accident whenever that happens.
It's okay. Maybe someone will Harvick the field on a restart.
Oh, it's already happening.
What would you rather have? Would you rather have someone Harvick the? Actually, that's a stupid question. I don't know if I would want anyone to Harvick the field, but I certainly wouldn't want anyone to LePage the field either.
I prefer if all you could just figure out how to merge.
Not a lot of people know how to merge, whether it's in NASCAR or on the road here. I mean, drive around, just spend a couple hours driving around here in Missouri. It's terrible.
I would rather just sit up in a tree and watch it off of the road personally.
It's like, look, I can't really blame drivers in Columbia though, because Columbia roads are.
Well, you're trying to dodge all the potholes here. I understand for the most part.
They're not any better here where I am. I mean, they've gotten a little bit better, but I remember there was some time, like, how do I put this? There's a meme that exists in the social media world where if you're sober driving in the Midwest, you will swerve your car all over the road to avoid the potholes. And instead, if you're driving in a straight line on a pothole-filled road, that's when you know, okay, you're drunk.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah. Interesting little thing there. But I digress. We're getting off track. There are some other things to talk about regarding some rides and personnel changes. One in particular that caught our attention at the end of last week, I think it was near the end of last week, or maybe it was over the weekend, but Tim Cindric, the man in charge of day-to-day operations at Team Penske, we've talked about Tim Cindric a few times on this program. He is stepping down from his role running day-to-day operations at Team Penske. He will still remain involved in some capacities, but he is resigning from his role as, I believe it was team president, but he's stepping down from the day-to-day operations to spend more time with family, along with some other ventures. This kind of brings into question, well, now that Tim Cindric is stepping down from the big role that he's had at Team Penske for the last few years, his son Austin drives in the Cup Series. Austin Cindric, does this potentially put his future at risk at Team Penske? Is Austin Cindric now on the hot seat? I right away, just off the top of my head, I would say no, not really. But you know, there is the possibility. There is the thought out there.
It's always though with Cindric. Heck, I'm sorry to cut you off, Hal, but with Cindric, it's an odd case. He has 2 wins. He's got 3 years. 2 wins is pretty good. Having a Daytona 500 win as one of your 2 wins is very good. Very, very, very good. However, his points finishes, on the other hand, that's been a lot left to be desired. And that second win was kind of flukish. Ryan Blaney ran out of gas when nobody saw that coming. This is where the conundrum of Austin Cindric is. And I don't think he's stepping away from the team anytime soon. I don't think he's on a hot seat this year by any stretch of the imagination. But it's one of those things where it's like, if he's in Penske, he's in title contending equipment, it's no longer out of the question for this to happen. It could possibly happen now. And I won't say he's on the hot seat this year, but he's got to start showing Penske speed, and that means being inside the top 15, top 10 when it comes to the points at the very least.
That should be the standard at Penske no matter what. I will safely say, if you had quit on Austin Cindric the year before, it would have been too soon. No matter, again, it doesn't matter that his dad's Tim Cindric. We're talking about a guy who's very accomplished in the Xfinity Series. He won a championship. He's very good. He won a Daytona 500. That gives you so much leeway. It provides so much of a cushion for the rest of your career, really, that you're going to be getting shots for a long time. It's the problem is who he's being compared to is Joey Logano and Ryan Blaney, who are both champions in the last 3 years. They both dominated the championship race and won titles. And that's where the problem lies, is that Austin Cindric hasn't shown much of a sign of being a title contender. This should be a make or break year for any normal driver in Penske equipment. This is the year where you show, are you going to be a championship contender at some point? Or should we start looking elsewhere to find another contender? Because Joey Logano is closer to the end than he is the beginning. Ryan Blaney's in his prime, and you do want to have a young guy ready to go. And Austin Cindric is a younger guy and fits that mold, but he needs to show something this year. My only problem is that this would be the reason why he needs to show something, because we kind of assumed as long as Tim Cindric's there, he's just got to ride forever. And that's the problem, is that was the assumption, and I don't like that any driver gets that kind of assumption. You can never play it safe in this game because nothing is guaranteed forever. So I hope that Austin Cindric does feel a little bit of a kick in the butt, not by this, but just the fact of where he is in his career. This is the year where you act like you are the guy who is going to be the next guy at Penske, or you go. And if Tim Cindric going is what causes that, well, I don't want to say good, because I don't want to see Austin Cindric lose his ride, but I want to see him keep his ride because he's that good and not because Tim Cindric is in the position he's in.
I feel like this is the real make it or break it year for Austin Cindric. And it's not to say he's bad at being in the Cup Series. I mean, he's won a couple races. Sure, circumstances led them to those victories, but we've seen how talented he is. We've seen him drive in the Xfinity Series and the Truck Series. We've seen what he's capable of doing behind the wheel. He's a real student of racing. He loves there's a lot of things about racing that he just really enjoys. And on top of that, he's also got a really good personality that I don't think gets a lot of attention. There was one ARCA race I remember a few years ago. Maybe it wasn't a few years ago, but recently, where he was a color commentator for a race, and he definitely has the sense of humor that we share, because there was one time where they mentioned the temperature, where Jamie Little mentioned it's beautiful weather tonight, 69 degrees, and in the background you hear Austin Cindric just go, nice. So I mean, he's got the personality to match, but he's also, I think last year was a sign that, hey, he's getting better. And it wasn't just the victory at Gateway. I think when you look at how he ran in the playoffs, sure, he's not on the level of Logano or Blaney, but right. Logano and Blaney are the two perennial stars in the Cup Series. Logano is a future Hall of Famer. Blaney, probably going to be a future Hall of Famer as well. Austin Cindric, he's the third guy at Penske, but he's starting to get better. He's getting better. He has been getting better. I mean, maybe not 2023. That was a sophomore slump year that we don't talk about. But last season, he actually ran pretty well. And come playoff time, he was running even better, starting to keep pace with his teammates. I think this is a year where Cindric, I think Cindric can actually win a race in the regular season. That slight spoiler alert, but I think Cindric does make the playoffs this year. And I think it's something that it's kind of like a slow burn of getting better, of improving behind the wheel. kind of like maybe this, I don't think this is the best example, but it's the one that comes to mind for me right away. Kind of like Riley Herbst when he drove for Stewart Haas Racing in the Xfinity series, slowly getting better over time to the point where last season was kind of a, oh, hey, this guy can actually drive.
I'll give you another example of a name, Bubba Wallace. Bubba Wallace for a long time. And granted, he was rushed up the cup way too soon. Given the, what happened with RFK's Xfinity program and everything like that. Bubba Wallace wasn't exactly the greatest driver in the world for a couple of years. A lot of that might have done with Penny as well, but over the last couple of years, he's getting better and better and better to the point where now you could say he's a top 15 driver right now in the NASCAR Cup Series. And I think it's going to be a vast majority of people agreeing with that statement. He is a top 15 driver. I feel like Cindric's going to get there eventually. I'm just not sure how much time he's going to have. And you're right. That first round of the playoffs, he was one of the best guys out there. He was the most consistent guy. And that race in Atlanta really showed that he can go out there and make a deep run. It was the second round that really undid him with that spin and the double whammy that happened at Talladega. He can improve. He's good. It just may take a little bit longer. And I think the one place where I really want to see him improve on is the place that we hyped him up when he was coming up the ranks, the road courses. Non-factor thus far are there, save for last year's Watkins Glen race. He's got to show stuff there like he did in the Xfinity Series, because in the Xfinity Series, he was a perennial threat every single time, and we got there. When we're talking about cup races now, he's an afterthought, Al.
Yeah, every time we talk about picks for road courses, Austin Cindric's name comes up, and you notice we don't pick him is because it hasn't really translated just yet. And that is, I don't want to say a problem, because I would say he started to outperform in other places that we didn't really expect him to. But the fact is, when he came up to the Cup Series, we also talked about Chase Elliott as the road course king. And as we know, once we got into the next gen car, Chase Elliott's reign as king of road courses came to an end. The Xfinity cars were never, ever, ever described as similar to a supercar. Let's put it that way. And I don't think we're going to see them described that way for a long time. But I think that plays a good bit to do with that. Austin Cindric's probably having the same struggles Chase Elliott's had with the road courses of this car is just different. And that means a guy like Shane Van Gisbergen's going to jump up and take wins away from those guys who we expected to. I don't think that's going to get better for Austin Cindric just because Dinger's back up. So good luck with this, really. That's going to make it even tougher on a guy like Austin Cindric. But if I'm Austin Cindric, I look at that and go, yeah, well, they can't beat me at Daytona. They can't beat me at these tracks. He's got a skill set in the Cup Series that's a lot different than we thought it would be. He needs to just find it. Just find that next gear that gets him multiple wins. I'm not saying he's going to go out and get 4 wins in regular season because that'd make him a title favorite. I'm saying get 2. Just get 2. And we can finally say you're getting somewhere, because Ryan Blaney didn't just blossom into a title contender. It was a process for him to get there. And if they had given up on Ryan Blaney along the way, they'd be out a series champion right now.
Well, Ryan Blaney, though, started out with a higher ceiling, despite the fact that he had, despite the fact that Cindric had the 500 victory. Obviously, that blew our expectations out of the water. Ryan Blaney won a race at Wood Brothers. Ryan Blaney had to earn his P's and Q's, and his first year in the Penske equipment in the mothership, and he made it to the round of 8.
I would say that brings up an argument about their upbringing into the Cup Series, is that you put a guy in the flagship car, well, the other guy got to develop in a Wood Brothers car. Well, he actually got a chance to develop.
Well, remember, the plan was for Cindric to be in that 21 car. The issue was Brad Keselowski went to RFK. And Cindric was supposed to be in that 21 car, and he had the situation where, he got rushed up to that 2 car because of that. And Brad Keselowski Cindric's in that at 21 car still. And I would have to imagine that 21 car would probably have more than 100 victories by this point as well to go along with it. But he would have been, and I think appropriately in season by that point. He came in a little bit on the rawer side, but this is year 4. You've got to start showing that this thing is at least medium rare.
Yeah. I'm just looking at Ryan Blaney's stats right now. 2016 was his first full-time season in the Cup Series, driving for the Wood Brothers. It was kind of a struggle. He ended up finishing 20th in the standings that year. Second season was a marked improvement, making it to the round of 8 and winning a race at Pocono for the Wood Brothers, which ultimately led to Penske opening up that third car for him. First 3 years driving for Team Penske, 3 wins over that time. 3 wins in 3 years. Then 2021 happens where he wins 3 races, goes winless in 22, but then wins multiple races in 2023 en route to a championship, and then was runner-up last season. So it did take a little time for Ryan Blaney. Kind of a similar case here with Austin Cindric, except Cindric, I mean, he's developing at Penske. That's the thing. And he's still developing, but hopefully this is the year where things click for him. I saw some improvement from Cindric as the season was winding down last year, and that gives me hope for him for 2025 to see if he's able to carry that through and hopefully make a playoff run for himself.
Yeah. It's going to be very interesting to see what Austin Cindric's going to be. I think he's probably one of the more underrated drivers in terms of hot seat potential, but with Tim and Cindric obviously stepping down, wanting to spend more time with his family, that's going to have a big impact on Penske as a whole. Obviously, we know how crucial of a player he was, especially last year, considering the fact that Penske suspended him. He was the main guy that they took out for those races for what happened at St. Petersburg. But this is definitely going to raise some questions about Austin Cindric, and it might be worth keeping an eye on who the Ford pipeline can poach, because there's not really a pipeline for the Ford camp, unlike the Toyotas or the Chevys.
Yeah. Maybe they should get a Xfinity team again. I don't know.
Maybe. You got 2 guys in the Haas camp, and with Sheldon Creed and Cole Custer, or not Cole Custer, Sheldon Creed and Sam Mayer. I'm sorry. All right, we'll get into the Xfinity Series and those guys in a little bit, but there's a couple other Xfinity guys we need to keep an eye on, including a guy that caught our attention very much last year with a run at New Hampshire.
Indeed. We're talking about Justin Bonsignore, the multi-time NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour champion in the New England region. Bonsignore last year ran at New Hampshire, was running really well. And again, the result does not reflect the run because he got spun out late in the going, finished outside the top 15, which was unfortunate because he was running top 5, top 10 all race long. Bonsignore is going to get another chance with Joe Gibbs Racing. We already knew he was going to run 5 races at least this season. Well, yesterday it was announced that Bonsignore's schedule is actually going to be increased now to 9 races in the number 19 for JGR. Great opportunity for Bonsignore. Clearly made a lot of good impressions out of his run in New Hampshire last season, rightly so. Looking forward to seeing what Bonsignore can accomplish in Joe Gibbs equipment with more races now to prove himself.
Would it be out of the question for him to finish in the top 30 in points this year in the Xfinity Series?
Depends on how many races the other guys run. But I think I wouldn't put it too far out of the question.
It's not out of the question, is what I'm saying here. Obviously, you have a bunch of full-time guys. We'll talk about those full-time guys, spoiler alert, later tonight. But I think he is obviously JGR equipment, JGR car, could potentially steal a race or two. this is a great opportunity for a tryout. But the thing is with JGR, you got to perform, man. They have a lot of faith in him given these extra 4 races.
They do. It's well placed, though. I can't wait to see what he does out on track. And we know with these JGR All Star cars, it's not out of question that he's in victory lane. I'm not saying that I'm expecting it myself, but he and JGR are expecting it because the way you got to look at it is if Ryan Truex can go out and get wins, a handful of wins in these cars, Eric Almirola can school the field whenever he's out there in the car. You got to at least go out there and get in victory lane once if you're making the most of this opportunity.
Yeah. No doubt about that, as will be the case for a couple of guys running on a part-time schedule for some selective races, including Preston and Pardus.
Mm-hmm. Preston Pardus, he's back, going to run for his own, for his family-owned team, Pardus Racing in the number 50. Don't know their schedule exactly, but I would imagine there's going to be quite a few road course races. That's kind of Preston's specialty in the Xfinity Series. Preston Pardus will run the number 50 car that his family runs. Preston, of course, is the son of Dan Pardus, who was a NASCAR Xfinity Series competitor in the late 90s into the early 2000s. Further down, you also have CJ McLaughlin is back behind the wheel. He'll be running at Daytona for DGM Racing in their 3rd car, which in this case will be the 92. McLaughlin set to run Daytona. That's the only race he has scheduled right now. DGM, of course, is going to have 2 full-time cars this season. The 71 for Ryan Ellis, who joins the team from Alpha Prime. You also have the 91, which is going to be split amongst many drivers, although Josh Bilicki will be running most of the schedule in that 91. And before I go further, I want to say congrats to Josh Bilicki and his wife, Caitlin. They welcomed their first child recently. Their son, Cole, was born into the world in the last week. So big congrats to Josh and Caitlin Bilicki for that.
Yeah, big congrats to the family, and good opportunity for DGM. Obviously, Daytona, though, different beast, and a lot of cars are showing up. It sounds like, I know on the truck side, we're going to have I think over 40 cars this year. ARCA, we're going to have 4 cars going home because they got 47 cars on that entry list. And of course, Cup Series got 45. Xfinity, I'm not sure on, but I have to imagine it's going to be over 40 given tendencies at Daytona, Hal.
My favorite part, the least favorite part is everyone kind of being heartbroken at the end, but the favorite part is, everybody is going to be driving their behinds off during qualifying, making sure they're not going to be the guys who have to go home.
Yeah, and I cannot imagine being in that situation where everything is on the line for those teams. Obviously, a lot of people are showing up to Daytona this year. The garage is going to be a busy place on Friday. Hey, even though 4 callers will have already bounced out, it'll be a very, very, very interesting 500 weekend. At least 4 haulers, too, because of the possibility of Elliot Castroneves making as the 41st. And we did also have some clarification today for the dual procedures. It will be 5 of the open drivers in dual number 1, and dual number 2 will have the 4 drivers. So it'll be a 5-4 split with the first duel having the 5.
Cool. So there's that also to keep in mind. One last bit of driver news to mention. Zhou Guanyu, the Chinese Formula One driver who raced the last 3 seasons with Kick Sauber, he is back with Ferrari. Zhou Guanyu will be racing with Ferrari as the test and reserve driver for the team. Ferrari, of course, will be fielding Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton as their 2 drivers in 2025. This is kind of a homecoming for Zhou Guanyu. He was formerly a member of the Ferrari Driver Academy in the mid-2010s, racing from 2014 to 2018 as a racer for Ferrari's Driver Academy in the lower ranks before moving to the Alpine Academy in 2019, and racing there for another 2 years after that before getting called up to race for Kick Sauber, a Ferrari affiliated outfit, in 2022. But now back with Ferrari affiliation and racing for the main outfit, Scuderia Ferrari, as their reserve driver for Formula One this season.
Good for Joe just to land on his feet after getting ousted. Coming back home, it's easy for Ferrari to pick him too because he's seasoned in an F1 car. There's not much you can really make of a reserve signing except good for both parties.
Yeah,
in case anything happens with Leclerc or Hamilton, Guan Yu, he's got the he's got the F1 experience. He's got 3 years under his belt, and he's still a really young guy. He's only 25. So
yeah,
plenty of time to, if there's ever a situation where something happens, Zhou can just step right in and take off, go right away.
I'll have to imagine it wouldn't just be Ferrari as well as a possible replacement. And this is also good for Ferrari because obviously they were moving a lot of guys up, including Oliver Behrman. Behrman is now driving in the Formula One ranks, so they didn't really have a go-to test and reserve driver from Formula 2 to really bank on. Zhou Guanyu just coming off of his Formula One season. Good move all around.
Absolutely. Solid move for Ferrari and a good step for Zhou Guanyu to still be involved with Formula One. It's not a full-time ride in the main driver capacity, but he's still involved some way, somehow. And he's still the only Chinese driver to compete in F1, trying to work to hopefully get back as a main driver one day. But this will work for now. But it's a good opportunity and a good team to do it for in Ferrari.
Going to be a very interesting battle. They are going to be a favorite this year for that constructors title alongside McLaren. But that's a pick for another day. Gentlemen, we've got some picks to make tonight, and more than you would expect, because we have decided that we are going to save our cup picks for next week, but we're going to do the other two series. There'll be the Trucks and Xfinity series. We're making our playoff predictions tonight. Actually, we've made our predictions already. Each of you have sent me your playoff of results here, and I have compiled them into graphics for viewer or viewability. I will also be making sure to post that on our Twitter/X page at Burn and Rubber or KCOU Rubber. And gentlemen, we'll also be making a prediction tonight for the Daytona 500 pole. It is almost around the corner, gentlemen. One more week until cars are on track at Daytona. But Hal, since you're the champion, we're going to start with you. You are going to have to explain yourself here because this is your grid. Walk us through it and with your selections.
All right, so let me put it this way. Chandler Smith is coming down to the Truck Series after being a contender in the Xfinity Series. And he's going to a team that is a title contender when it had Zane Smith. And in the last half of last year, they looked really good with Lane Riggs. Lane Riggs looked like he found it, finally. I think Chandler Smith's a guy who doesn't need to find it. He doesn't have specialty tracks. He's just good all around. He's been in the Truck Series before as a contender. I think he can just come down and pull it off. And Corey Heim's going to have to be the bridesmaid yet again. I don't know. I feel like Corey Heim's destined to get 6 wins every year and finish second in the standings. It just feels like that's his destiny until he finally gets hauled out of the Truck Series and probably skips the Xfinity Series straight to the Cup. Whenever that happens, but I don't know when that's going to be. The rest of my top 4, Daniel Hemrick is Mr. Consistency, and I think that can drag him to the last round and not win at Phoenix. That's just kind of the brand I see. McAnally Hilgeman is a great team, and he isn't going to fill Christian Eckes' role because no one can. But he's going to do a good job of being the top guy at the team. And Ty Majeski is Ty Majeski. He's going to make it to Phoenix. I don't know how he's going to finish 3rd at Phoenix. I'm trying to wrap my head around my thought process there. I'm imagining he gets involved in something. Rest of my playoff guys, Roger Carruth, I think, takes another step. I don't think he's ready to get to the Final Four just yet. Grant Enfinger, It feels like there's more talent in the top side of the truck series, not as high end, but enough guys are around his skill level. It's kind of going to be tough to navigate past all of them. Lane Riggs, I think, can make that step because we saw him do it in the second half of last year. He's a playoff driver this year. Tyler Ankrum, this is kind of just where he tends to be, and I don't think he improves or gets worse. Someone can argue he's going to take the spot Chris Schneck has had, and I would definitely say that's possible. It was tough to pick a spot for Tyler Ankrum. Ben Rhodes is just a perennial playoff contender no matter what. And Caden Honeycutt's the one I think I have to explain the most. This guy performed so well in limited attempts last year for Nice Motorsports, and he's going to be the undisputed #1 guy there. He is so talented, and you can see the raw talent. I think that truck has enough for him to squeak into the playoffs. It was tough to pick him over Tanner Gray because his truck is better. It is. It just is. But I think Caden Honeycutt can overcome that. The rest of this, I'm not sure how much I need to explain, but Andres Perez de Lara is at Spire and coming out as the ARCA champion. I think that is enough for me to think he's got the equipment to get him to 12th. But putting him over Matt Crafton and Stuart Friesen was like, it was the toughest choice I ever made because I feel like those veterans could very well finish above him. But this is what I ended up with. Any questions, gentlemen?
Well, one of the questions I have, and I'm good at translation to Sterling with this, is Gio Ruggiero down in 16th. That is a little bit low there, or how?
Well, I mean, I'm looking at this and thinking, you know, I saw a couple predictions of like when you contrast them with my playoff grid, if you want to throw that up there, yep. It's quite different. So Justin's pulling up my playoff predictions of what I've made for the truck series.
I think I might have accidentally pulled the house back up again. And there we go.
All right.
Seriously?
So mine's getting pulled up here any minute now.
So, yeah. And this is why we're still on, and this is why we're still doing Zoom meetings, things recorded. Hey, people, if you're ever wondering why, hey, it's because I can't figure out how to do Twitch or YouTube to save my life. Hey, all right. Hey.
Third time's the charm, hopefully.
That's not it. Good grief. What is this? They're gonna have to cut out this part. And I guess I'm just gonna do this. So I'm just gonna close out of the other two that I've got up, and then hopefully this will work.
If not, I can just try and pull mine up and describe it. Well, while
there we go. I got it.
There it is. So here are my predictions. Some different, some similar, but some also wildly different. So here are my predictions. My champion's pick for now is Corey Heim. I gotta think third time's the charm. It's got to be Heim time the third time around, hopefully, for a championship. The fact that he's still in the truck series is honestly incredible. Man deserves Xfinity and borderline cup ride. Ty Majeski is also up here as my number 2 pick. Majeski just always finds a way to be there at the end, it seems. And when considering we have, Majeski can run well at 1.5 miles. He can win there. He is also a short track is his specialty. So I would think short tracks are going to be how Majeski gets to the final 2 or the final 4, I should say. That's going to be how he does it. Third and fourth, I picked both the front row motorsports guys. Chandler Smith in third because Smith is riding high off of what was a great season in the Xfinity series last season. Statistically, he was one of the best drivers in that series. The fact that he's in the truck series is, in a way, it's kind of a shame to think about it because I feel like he's a lot more talented, but he's in a really good team. He's at a really good truck series team that is capable of winning races and winning championships. They've done it before. I think he is kind of like he reminds me of John Hunter Nemechek when Nemechek came back to the truck series and was beating the field on a regular basis. Lane Riggs, I think, can step up and make the championship 4 this year. He's bringing back basically the same crew that they ended the season on a hot streak last season. The only difference is their truck number. So it's the same team, it's the same personnel, different truck number. I think Lane Riggs has enough to at least make the championship 4 this year. The rest of my playoff picks are very interesting. Like Hal, I am very high on Caden Honeycutt at Nice Motorsports. Reminds me a lot of Carson Hocevar when Hocevar was at Nice in the truck series a few years ago. I think Honeycutt is talented enough to win a race and can muscle that truck to a pretty deep playoff run. Not sure it's good enough for a championship 4 appearance, but he'll be up there. Raja Karuth, I expect kind of a similar season from what we saw last year. Daniel Hemrick, this one was tricky because I feel like Hemrick is good enough to win a race, but at the same time, knowing Hemrick's luck, he may go winless this year and still be in the playoffs. I think he's good enough to at least warrant a playoff run. Grant Enfinger, nothing against him or his team because he's still very talented in his own right. It's just that I think the talent level has really increased around Grant Enfinger and CR7 Motorsports this year to the point where I just don't know if they'll make the championship 4 this time around. 9th and 10th, I have 2 other rookies. Gio Ruggiero in the 17. He was basically the guy who was always finishing behind Connor Zilich and William Sawalich in the ARCA East division. Whenever they weren't winning, like if they were running first and second, it was almost always Gio who was running third behind them, which I think is why Gio is in the truck series and not Xfinity. But I think Ruggiero, I liked what I saw out of him out of the Rockingham test, which is kind of what solidified my confidence in Ruggiero. I think he's good enough to make the playoffs. I would consider him possibly even winning a race to get into the playoffs. I think he's that good of a talent, not on the level of Zilich or Sawalich, because those two I think are generational. Ruggiero is also generational, but to a lesser extent, I feel.
Have a Bubba Wallace stuff, Blaney and Elliott type situation.
Exactly. And that's nothing bad against Gio Ruggiero. I think he just needs a little bit more time, but I think he'll take to trucks pretty quickly. At least I would hope. But I think it'll be enough for a playoff run. And 10th and 11th, this was really close here. I had to decide. Right now I'm opting with Connor Mozak to make it in 10th because I think Mozak in 9 races in mostly, I mean, he ran a couple races for Nice, but 9 races between Nice Motorsports and Spire Motorsports equipment. He had, I think, 3 or 4 top 10s and was running very well in his limited schedule as the season went on. He showed flashes of, hey, this guy can run really well. Just give him a full-time ride, and I think he'll do good with it. I don't know if Mozak is going to win this season, but I think he'll have enough top 5s, top 10s to point his way in, just barely eking out Tyler Ankrum, who last year was great for Ankrum. I'm not sure if he'll replicate that success. And again, it's nothing against Ankrum. It's just that I think this year, the talent level on the truck series is really stacked this year. It's a lot higher than it's been in years past, which is why I also have Ben Rhodes not making it in. Matt Crafton, I don't have making it in either. Tanner Gray, I think, just takes a slight step back, which actually could be a step forward in performance, but again, the talent level surrounding him. Stuart Friesen 15th. Andres Perez de Lara. I think this year, as much as I want to see him be successful in Spire Motorsports equipment, I feel like this is going to be kind of what we saw out of Raja Karuth in his rookie season. I mean, granted, Perez de Lara won the ARCA championship, but he won it while not winning a single race.
Kind of a default winner.
That is, yeah, kind of won it by default by running the best out of everybody there. But he didn't win a single race in ARCA. That does have me concerned, which is why I have him down in 16th. Jake Garcia, I just don't know if Thor Sport's going to have the upward in performance. I mean, sure, Ty Majeski's great, but I think the rest of the team, unfortunately, is struggling. Dawson Sutton, he'll do good enough to at least be top 20 in points. Tony Breidinger, just bring the truck home. Same case with Jack Wood. And then you have some alternates there, which I didn't really care to fill out. But I feel like that would be pretty accurate in terms of where I would have them finishing in the final point standings. But those are my Truck Series predictions, as you see.
Really, the alternates were the only guys kind of running that full-time season remaining. And those are alternates in case a driver is not expected to return to the full-time season. Obviously, Stuart Friesen has been rumored, or there has been some questions, but it does feel like Stuart Friesen is going to run the full season. But Sterling, I can't believe I'm saying this, but me and Hal were on the exact same page with our playoff 10. However, our title predictions were on the opposite ends. I'm going with Ty Majeski as the champion, not because I think he's going to be the best driver all year, but I think it's going to come down to that Phoenix race. And that is also why I think Lane Riggs is going to be a factor this year. I can see Lane Riggs getting 3 to 4 wins throughout the season, potentially even getting that Martinsville victory to lock himself into the Final Four. Corey Heim, I have to keep him here. Or it's one of those things where if it's not Majeski and Riggs at Phoenix, if it was at Kansas or at a Las Vegas or any other track that's not a short track, Corey Heim's my champion. It's not even close, but I just feel like this is going to be the boogeyman for Corey Heim not getting this done. I also agree with you, though, Sterling, in terms of the Final Four. Chandler Smith, I think, is going to be too talented to keep out of this Final Four. Or Daniel Hemrick's going to be right up there or with him. I feel like he's going to be one of those guys that is going to have that 20th place finish at Talladega that knocks him out. Now, when really he's had a spectacular year. Grant Enfinger, I feel like, is a guy who survives Talladega, but it's not going to be a win, which is going to knock him out. I am high on Kenyon Honeycutt. I agree with more on Sterling's side than I am on Howell's side with that prediction. I think that he is too talented not to get a win. And it's going to be one of those years where he is going to go out there and just destroy the field and catch everybody by surprise. This could be Nice's next big Ross Chastain driver. Tyler Ankrum, I think he continues the momentum from last year. And I'm kind of in agreement with you, Sterling, with Ben Rhodes, but it feels like I got to put him in out of respect. He's a 2-time champion. He won one 2 years ago. It's more of a respect pick. And I don't see Rajat Karouf in a year where everybody seems to be upping their game. I feel like Rajat Karouf is not going to be able to reach the heights that he did last season. And I could be totally wrong on that, but I feel like he could be that guy where he gets bounced in the first round and it's a shock to everybody. I am confident in Gio. I do like Mozak. I do think those guys bring a lot to the table. I just don't think they bring it as rookies. Jake Garcia, I think Inc. is also a very talented driver. I do agree, though, that Thor is going to take that step back. Tanner Gray, that second half of that regular season concerns me, and I just don't think this is going to be enough for him. Perez, Friesen, Crafton, we all kind of have the same idea when it comes to those guys at this point. And I actually went with Jack Woods and Matt Mills and Dawson Sutton. I just have a feeling that Rackley War is not where they need to be with equipment, which, yes, that does bring Tony Breidinger as my 21st driver. She is one of my alternates. I just feel like with the amount of talent in Jack Woods and Matt Mills, I just feel like this is going to be a field where she is going to finish outside the top 20 because, unfortunately, nothing from her ARCA performances has screamed anything in top 20. The equipment is definitely top 10. I just don't think she's going to be a top 20 driver this year, which brings us all the way to the cumulative. And we'll go ahead and pull all that up right here, right now. We've made our picks. We're doing a little bit of a comparison now to one another. We'll showcase everything in side by side, and this is what it is. And so, again, me and Sterling had the same Final Four. How you decided to go with Daniel Hemrick as your fourth driver, any thoughts on this? It's great, gentlemen, and kind of our overall assessment of the Truck Series drivers this season.
I think the biggest contrast is where we see Gio Ruggiero and Connor Mozak. I think those are the two drivers that I see the biggest contrast with. Also, Lane Riggs in a comparison there. Going to be interesting to see how this season plays out, because I think we have an idea of which drivers could make the championship four. It's the rest of the field that is going to be what wants to watch.
And really, one of the shocks on this list as well. Oh, there were 16 spots on this list. Not one of them belongs to Matt Crafton. Not one of them.
I think that speaks to how his stock has fallen for us. It started with the off-the-track incident, I think, that really shook us a little bit on his standing as a veteran driver. And his performance on the track has fallen because I'm not going to pick on the guy, but I have to check how old he is, because, he is
He's going to be 49 this year.
He's 48. Guys don't stay as good as they were when they're 48, and it's not even a slight on his skill level. It's just a fact. Father Time waits for nobody.
Yeah, I think age, but also Thor Sport equipment, it's not as good as it's been in years past, which I think goes to show just how talented Ty Majeski is in bringing that equipment up to snuff and showing what it is capable of. Matt Crafton, he's a lifer in the Truck Series. He's very accomplished, has made a great career out of it. I just don't know how long it's going to last. And unfortunately, the performance has taken a downturn. Ben Rhodes, I left out of the playoffs because he kind of made it in by default last year, pointing his way in, and then just kind of disappointing aside from that, and was at round one exit. Jake Garcia and who else? I mean, Ben, he's the other full-timer for Thor Sport. Jake Garcia is very talented, but again, that equipment, I worry about that equipment.
It's going to be a very interesting Truck Series season for sure. I think we kind of have an idea of a nucleus with this one, but at the kind of the 5 through 12 spots, I think it's really going to be fair game for this season for the Truck Series. It is going to be a very interesting year. 24 races for them and this year, including Lime Rock Park. That is going to be very fun to go up to Connecticut for that. But we also got some predictions to make for the Xfinity Series. We'll also start off once again with Hal, and you're starting off with a scorcher, Hal. You're going with a rookie to win in the title this year.
There's precedent. His name is Ty Gibbs, and I think Connor Zilisch is as good as him.
Hold on. Why does it say my name at the top?
Oh, that is stir. Oh, wait. Oh boy, I forgot.
I know those are my rankings too.
Yeah, I forgot to change the name on the top there.
Okay. So for any viewers of these are Hal's predictions.
Yes, these are Hal's.
It's Hal's, not mine.
This is all me. This is all I have to take credit and blame for all this on here. Connor Zilisch wins the championship. Ty Gibbs did it. Connor Zilisch is in just as good of Xfinity equipment as Ty Gibbs was. I think he gets it done. I just think he's that good. I don't think there's anyone who's going to say he's not that good. Just circumstances. I don't think his circumstances are going to matter. Jesse Love, number 2. We sometimes say you have to win one or lose one to win one. I think Jesse Love's a guy who would fit into that category of a guy who needs to finish second and feel that sting and then go out and win. Justin Allgaier, he's got his title. He's going to do what he always does, consistency, get to Phoenix. And it's not that he can't do it. It's just that I think that there are 2 guys above him who are younger and now hungrier than Justin Allgaier. It's hard to be very hungry when you've already been filled up. Am I right, fellas? Sheldon Creed 4th. It was really tempting to say 2nd. Reason why I have him in here is because Sam Mayer's inconsistency always is a scary product for me. And I think that we're going to have one from each manufacturer there. I lied. I meant different teams. I think Ford gets one and Toyota doesn't, is what I really mean.
Wow.
That's the part where I'm sure a lot of people are going to go, I don't know. William Sawalich is a very talented driver, but is William Sawalich a guy I consider generational? Some might. I don't, because generational to me means a lot. It means you are going to be a title contender when you get to the Cup Series. You're going to be expected to be a title contender one day. William Sawalich is very good, but nothing that he's done so far to me has screamed, I'm going to go up to the Cup Series and run that place. Well, Connor Zilic is a guy who walked into the Xfinity Series and said, I'm going to win day one. Guys don't do that very often. Austin Hill, I don't think makes it to the Final Four because we're kind of depending on Talladega to be the one that gets him there. And I understand he's very good there, but I don't trust depending on a super speedway very much. Sam Mayer, I've said inconsistency. Sammy Smith, I think that he's going to take a step up. May I regret that putting him above Carson Kvapil later? Yes, I probably will. Thinking about it now, I would go back and make the change. I already submitted it though. We're not making changes. It's too late. William Sawalich, I think he's very good. That's why he's the top Toyota up here for me. I just don't think that he's going to make it to the Final Four. Carson Kvapil, like I just said, I'd switch him with Sammy Smith in a heartbeat. Christian Eckes, I think he's going to be a top driver for Kaulig, and it's Kaulig, so I don't have as much confidence with them as a team lately. I hope they surprise me, but again, I can't make a ranking on surprises. He seems like a playoff driver just made to be in the playoffs. I just don't think he's going to be able to get carried very much farther than that. Brandon Jones is back at JGR. That means Brandon Jones is going to win a stupid race where he shouldn't win at probably an intermediate track, and he's going to sneak his way to the playoffs. I don't make the rules. They just kind of come out like that sometimes. And Ryan Sieg is the one where I put a driver in the playoffs with my heart. I want Ryan Sieg to make the playoffs. I want a team that isn't the big ones to get in there. And Ryan Sieg is a talented enough driver to do that. Putting him over Taylor Gray is tough. Harrison Burton also, I know it's going to be a head scratcher because of the equipment. Let me explain. I just think he's that good in Xfinity Series that he can carry it to not the playoffs, but close enough to where you're impressed. I think that's about where he lies for me. Taylor Gray, I think went up a little early, and that's why I have him missing the playoffs. My picks on JGR are going to be the most controversial. I already know. It is not because of their equipment. It is because they're going to have wins and top five stolen by all-star cars is why they're not going to be as high up. Nick Sanchez, I think Big Machine with Parker Kligerman, they performed very well, overperformed, I'd even say. Nick Sanchez being a rookie, I think is going to bring it down just a notch, but still be a team you could see making the playoffs down the stretch. Daniel Dye, same thing, rookie and Kaulig. It's going to be tough for Kaulig, especially with the influx of talent that's entering in rookie ranks. Alfredo's about where he was last year. Same with Brennan Poole and Parker Retzlaff. Actually, a lot of this was me looking at last year and going, did they go down in equipment? Not really. Then they're going to be in the same spot. Jeremy Clements had the same thing happen. Josh Williams goes down because there's just more rookies who jumped in. And Harrison Burton coming down, I think, is going to be better than Josh Williams in Kaulig. Jeb Burton is on a hope and a prayer of another Talladega win or a Daytona win. Otherwise, that's about where it'll be. Putting DiBenedetto behind some of these guys, I think driver talent-wise, I don't think is right. But Viking Motorsports on its own, how are they going to do? That's going to be the question for DiBenedetto. Kyle Sieg, sorry. And Blaine Perkins, also sorry. Somebody's got to be 24th and 25th on this list, and I apologize to them.
And you left out Dean Thompson at 26, and Chris Wright.
I just want him to match his car number.
That's fair. That's fair. And I apologize. I swear, I checked that list like several times, Hal. And I checked it and to make sure the numbers were right. And I, of course, forgot to change the name because I did Sterling's first, and that's the one I copied on anybody else for the template-wise for the Xfinity Series, at least. I did it a little bit differently for the rest. But Sterling, you've got some different picks for sure here. And instead, you've got JR Motorsports winning the title, but it's not the rookie. It's the defending champion.
I figured I owed it to Justin Allgaier. I owed him the respect to to see that he can at least go back to back. You know, Allgaier, he is almost religiously in the top 4, almost religiously in the championship 4 for the Xfinity Series. And I see Allgaier, I can see how he does it again and repeats, goes back to back. Austin Hill, I see making the Final 4 for the second year in a row as well. I think RCR, there may be some growing pains with his new crew chief he's got. I want to say Chad Haney, I believe is the crew chief's name. It's going to be, I think, a bit of a growing pain to start the season. Well, maybe not to start the season. They're going to Daytona. So
Yeah,
Austin Hill at Daytona is like a cheat code. Same with Atlanta. And I think he can win at Talladega to get in the championship 4 too. I'll say it now. Connor Zilisch, I think he makes the championship 4. I don't think he wins the title, but he makes the championship 4. He's going to be at road courses. I think he's going to be the guy to beat. If as long as SVG or AJ Allmendinger doesn't come down and race in the road course, I think Zilisch is going to be the guy to beat on road courses. Where I wonder is how is he going to do on the short ovals? He won on short ovals in ARCA, which I like, but is Allgaier and Austin Hill going to be outperforming him in that final race at Phoenix? My last pick for the championship 4, I see Jesse Love getting in there. I don't think there will be a sophomore slump for Love. I like Jesse Love in the championship 4. Rest of my playoff picks, I kind of had to go all over the place with. I think Haas Factory Team is going to pick up where SHR left off. I think Sheldon Creed is going to be up there in the playoff mix. I think this year he wins a race.
Okay.
Probably not to get in the championship 4, but I think he will win a race. Carson Kvapil, I'm really high on. I think he'll do well. Maybe not as good as Zilisch, but he'll make the playoffs. Taylor Gray, I liked what I saw out of him in his limited schedule with JGR last year. Most of the time when he finished outside the top 10, it was usually bad luck of some form that happened. But I liked what I saw out of him. I think he's going to be the highest of the JGR guys. Sammy Smith, I think it'll be kind of a repeat of what we saw last season. Hopefully some improvement, maybe 2 wins instead of 1. Sam Mayer, he'll be up there in the playoff mix as well, but with SHR's second car, I just wonder how that's going to fare for him. William Sawalich, I think he is a generational talent, or at least he has the potential for it. He's not quite on the level of Connor Zilisch, though, at least not right now. Yes, he did beat Zilisch for the ARCA championship, but there were some other factors that came into play there. I like Sawalich to at least get in the playoffs, maybe win a race or 2. But aside from that, we'll have to see. Christian Eckes, I think, is going to be the leader for Kaulig. I think he's good enough to get in the playoffs, but I am kind of on the fence with it, considering Eckes has never raced in the Xfinity Series. In fact, his first race will be at Daytona in about a week and a half. So something to watch for there. And Brandon Jones for Joe Gibbs Racing, I think this is a rebound year where he will at least get in the playoffs. I like Brandon Jones to make it in there. Ryan Sieg, first guy out, unfortunately. Harrison Burton, I think, will do okay for AM Racing. I think it's more the equipment that will kind of let him down there. Nick Sanchez, I have in the top 15 with Big Machine taking a small step back. Daniel Dye, I liked what I saw out of his limited schedule. I just don't think he'll be on the level of Christian Eckes. Then I have Parker Retzlaff. I liked what I saw out of Alpha Prime in the Rockingham test. Retzlaff, I think, will take a step up and hopefully not crash as much as there was last season. Anthony Alfredo will help bring Young's Motorsports up a little bit into the top 20. Josh Williams, I see a small improvement with him. Brennan Poole, I mean, 20th almost feels I almost feel bad putting him 20th because he's better than 20th. I just think the talent level around him has increased. Dean Thompson, I put him here at 21st. I think I would hope at least, that the actual cars themselves will better suit his driving style than the trucks did. But considering the equipment he's in, how raw he is in the Xfinity Series, I don't know how far it'll carry him. I think this will be probably his ceiling for now. Jeb Burton, I just don't think Jordan Anderson Racing is going to take a step forward. This is kind of where they'll be. Ditto with Viking Motorsports branching away from RSS Racing. I think Matt Benedetto and Jeremy Clements will kind of be in a battle with each other for around this range. And then I see Kyle Segan 25th because Blaine Perkins, I didn't really see that wow factor at his time at RSS or even at Our Motorsports before that. And speaking of Our Motorsports, Chris Wright, I know he's listed as an alternate here. I'll just say this right now. I'll be surprised if Chris Wright finishes the season.
Yeah, that it mainly be there just because of the fact that he's in that 5 car, or really that is the only reason why he would probably be on that list there. But I think, gentlemen, you are not ready for mine because Sterling, I agree with you on the title. However, I do have a bit of a scorcher pick for the Final Four, and you guys are not ready for who I put on here. I have decided I am going with Sam Mayer. Oh. I think this is the year that Sam Mayer puts it together. I think he gets that consistency. It's been the one thing that has been holding him back. And I think he can make a bold run to the Final Four this year. I think the tracks that line up in the final round really elevate him. And I think he can do some damage at that Phoenix race. However, I'm not putting him over Allgaier. Obviously, I have Zillage. I have Austin Hill. These are going to be the 4 teams or the 3 teams this year that I think are really going to be contending for the title. RCR, or JR Motorsports, and Haas. I don't have Joe Gibbs Racing in the Final Four, so none of us had a Toyota in our Final Four. I do have Brandon Jones rebounding, though, and I could see him rebounding in a big way. Prior to jumping ship, Brandon Jones was 2 to 3 race winner there. It seems like Joe Gibbs Racing is really backing him. I can see him doing a lot of damage. I do agree with Creed probably getting a win, but I don't think it's going to be enough to really propel him into a Final Four appearance. I feel like Creed could be one of those guys that can be one of the dominant guys all year and gets the Talladega unfortunate luck. And I could see Eckes potentially scraping by that first round as well. I have Taylor Gray a lot lower than you guys do. So I think he's going to be a good. I just think there's going to be something in that round where he's not going to be good enough and he gets outbeaten. Ryan Sieg, I think he gets a win this year. I've been on record saying that he's going to get this win in this year. I will stand by that. Sammy Smith, William Sawalich, they're here. Again, I just haven't seen anything out of Sammy Smith that would indicate he is better than just getting out of that first round without a fluky win. I just feel like he is in that spot where it's just like, okay, yeah, you got past Talladega, but Talladega ain't here anymore. So I feel like he gets knocked out there. William Sawalich, I think he's good, but I don't think he's that good. Carson Quaffel's the one pick that it's one where I'm going to regret it. And I know I'm going to regret it, putting him all the way down here. But I have a feeling that this is going to be the team where we're going to have a lot of winners this year. I'm predicting, I'll throw it out here. I think we get 10 winners this year before the end of the regular season in the Xfinity Series. I am throwing it out there. I think we get 10 winners this year in the Xfinity Series before we go into the playoffs. And I think Carson Quaffle is going to be one of those guys inside the top 10 in that bubble range. He's just the first guy out because of the winners. And we've seen this happen in the Cup. I just think he gets snake bit there. Nick Sanchez, I have a little higher than both of you. I got him in 14th, Burden 15th. I do think he's able to propel that and equipment. I'm a little higher on Parker Redsclaff than you are, Sterling, but I do agree with the sentiment. The Rockingham test really confirmed it for me. Daniel Dyes there, Dean Thompson. And I think that's more respect for Sam Hunt than it is for Dean Thompson. And we've seen guys do better in different equipment. And then in that situation, Brendan Poole, Josh Williams, Matt DiBenedetto, I'm a little bit higher on. I think he and Jeremy Clements are going to be neck and neck all year long. And then I've got Blaine Perkins, Chris Wright out just, I mean, Chris Wright, I think is going to have to prove it or lose it. I think he does prove it for the time being. And I feel so bad for Anthony Alfredo. I just think the equipment is not there for that 42 team and Young's Motorsports, which leaves Josh Bilicki, Jeff Burton, and Kyle Sieg on the outside. Because you got to keep in mind with Kyle Sieg, they had to run and Ryan Sieg in that car just to get them into a spot where they're more than likely going to be good on next Saturday when they qualify for the 300. Right. So those are my predictions. I'm a lot more on the hot takey side of things. That is the lineup, though, I will be going for. And as we look at the cumulative results that I am pulling up right now, a lot of more difference than the Truck Series. It is going to be a very interesting year. Thoughts on the similarities, thoughts on the differences, gentlemen?
Well, I see our Championship 4 looks pretty similar, except for a couple of minor differences, namely Sheldon Creed and Sam Mayer. But I see one of Carson Kvapil and Taylor Gray. You look at those, there's a couple of outliers picks there. Ryan Sieg with the bubble. It really kind of what we talked about with the Truck Series, how 5 through 12 was going to be kind of a crapshoot. Take your pick on what you think is going to be there. It's going to be 5th through 13th, 14th for Xfinity Series, maybe even more, depending on if someone from way out of the bubble goes on to win one of these races.
I'm going to try and justify some things right here. Mostly my JGR picks here. William Sawalch is skipping the Truck Series. Am I correct? A full-time Truck Series season?
Correct.
There's got to be a good reason for that from the Toyota camp, because it's not like there was a driver you once had in your camp who could have done that, and he went up and did that with RCR. Toyota doesn't like to bring guys up like that unless they really have something they see in them. And I think with Sawalch, he's got to justify that this year. So I think 8th would do that to an extent. Taylor Gray's coming up from the Truck Series, and yes, he made the playoffs, but no, he didn't win, correct? Did he win a race last year?
He did not.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Taylor Gray did not win a race last year in the trucks.
He made the playoffs, but he didn't win a race, I think, is what happened.
Correct. Taylor Gray did not win a race.
Yeah, because there were 6 winners in the trucks last year.
That's the reason why when he got called up for this, we said he got called up early, and I feel like that's going to show itself. And it's not by any means what Taylor Gray's potential is. It's where he's at right now. And I think right now, he's going to come into the spot a lot of guys went to KBM with, which is you should win here. And then they don't, and then everyone's looking at Kyle Busch a little bit, and he goes, get out. But JGR's not going to say get out. That's the difference here. I don't think they say get out unless it's disastrous. I don't think 14th is disastrous. And Brandon Jones, I think we're all in agreement. Brandon Jones has some magic witchcraft he pulls out at JGR, lets him just go win races when you don't expect him to, and then he does a deep playoff run as Justin's predicting, and you think he has no business doing it, but he reminds you, I am Brandon Jones, and I just do whatever I want if I'm in a Toyota with JGR.
Really, we kind of have a nucleus of 13 this year. It's take your pick of whether or not you believe in Ryan Sieg to get into the postseason and your assessment of the JGR guys. I think that's going to be the main assessment here is whether or not JGR can get 3 guys into the playoffs this year. And I think the obvious answer is we'll see, but it's going to be tough with JGR because you also have to factor in Eric Almirola. You have to factor in and Justin Bonsignor. There's going to be a lot of wins on the table, but I genuinely think this is going to be the field where we're going to have, I think, 10 winners this year. I don't think we're going to have as many couple eaches as we were last year with guys like John Hunter Nemechek and Ty Gibbs coming down and winning races. I think we are going to have a more centric Xfinity Series field this year, even with the Dash for Cash races becoming available. I could see 10 different winners in this group. So I will go on record and say I don't think Eckes is a winner, but I think he gets through. And I'm going to say Taylor Gray is not going to get a win. But the rest of the guys who I have in my playoff field, I'm having winning races. And I think Carson Kvapil is just going to be that guy that falls short.
Yep. Only one way to find out is to wait as the season unfolds, because this is going to be one heck of a season. I already like, I mean, this feels like the most talent the Xfinity series has had in a good bit.
And that's with guys like Justin and Shane Van Gisbergen, AJ Allmendinger, and Cole Custer. And Justin Allgaier is still here, but and it is definitely it is a young field. I wouldn't say this is the best field we've had, but it's a very young field with a lot of potential and a lot of upside to a lot of these guys.
Absolutely. So with that, we're already stretching time here. Let's go ahead. We have one last pick that we're going to make tonight, and that is for the poll for the Daytona 500. Because by the time that we're recording next Wednesday, February the 12th, qualifying will be underway or will have wrapped up. Just depends on how things work out for the scheduling. But Daytona 500 poll qualifying is next week. We will go ahead and make our predictions as to who we believe is going to win the poll for the Great American Race.
Let's go ahead and do it. And it'll be same order as the last week because we finished in the same exact spots as we did in the 2024 title picture. So Hal, the Chase Elliott prediction paid off, but is this time to use the wheel or are you going to go use logic here?
I'm going to use a logical wheel as my answer. I'm sure that was not the answer you were expecting. It's the wheel, but with guys I actually think are going to get the pole. For the 500, it's going to be 41 names, so don't worry about that when that time comes around.
Fair enough.
All right. There's 6 names on here. Here's a spoiler. It's 4 Hendrick guys and 2 Fords. Well, no longer. One of them's no longer a Ford. He's just really good here. All right. Will Smith is my background image, by the way, so he's presenting this for me. We're going crazy.
I've always been curious. Have we ever actually seen this wheel?
We have not seen this wheel.
No, you have not. But the truth of the matter is, here's how you know it's real. It landed on the guy who's no longer a Ford driver, but it's really good here. Give me Michael McDowell.
Uh-oh. Spire hype is already starting to bubble up. We'll have our cup predictions next week, but and I have a feeling one of you two have put in a Spire guy in this playoff field.
I'm not going to spoil my cup playoff picks just yet, but let's see. So Hal is going with Michael McDowell for the poll here in the Daytona 500. Justin, who you got for poll?
It used to be very easy to pick the poll for the 500 because you just look at, oh yeah, it's Hendrick guys. Okay, it would always be a Chevy's on Wednesday, a Ford's on Thursday, and Toyota's on Sunday. Who would be the fastest? But now that the establishment has been broken up, it is very difficult to decide this. But I do think some of that momentum from last year is going to carry over. I am going to go with the team that won this last year, but since Hal picked the driver who finished on the outside row, probably should have gotten pole because of Logano's web glove. I'm going to go ahead and say it's going to be the same car. I'm going with the flagship at the front row. I am going with Todd Gilliland. Get the pole for the Daytona 500.
Nice. Okay. So now we have McDowell. We have Todd Gilliland. 2 outside the box picks for this one. Interesting. Who am I going to go with for the poll?
All Hendricks are on the table here.
That's true. I mean, all the Hendrick guys are out there. They've qualified well here in the past. Part of me wants to say Ford, but Ford really shows their strength in packs. And regarding this one, I think regarding single car speed, have to go with a Chevy, and it's going to be a Hendrick. Question is which one? I'm not, well, you make a case for either one of them, but I'm going to go relatively safe on this. I'm going to go with a guy who has won the 500 pole before. which you could say about the case for any of the Hendrick guys. They've all done it before, but I'm going to go with Kyle Larson to win the Daytona 500 pole.
All right. And gentlemen, that is our picks. Again, these are the picks that will decide the duels and the rest of the week, except for the 500, which Hal, you are going to get first pick for that as the rightful champion and champion's advantage for the 500. Resto, going to be decided by this pole qualifying, and we will be live during the 500 pole qualifying. We'll have an idea of which 4 drivers are going to be breathing a little easier going into Thursday, which 2 are going to be safe. Does Helio make it? Does Johnson make it? Does Truex make it? Only 2 of them are going to lock themselves into the 500 alongside the 36 drivers. Plus Helio, I guess. But, gentlemen, this is it. 1 week away from cars being on track. 500 Media Day as well on Wednesday. And then, of course, the Great American Race right around the corner as well.
Gonna be a fun time. Really looking forward to this to the next weekend for racing. And Hal and I will be looking forward to Sunday as well with a certain game that's going on.
If you mean looking forward to dreading until we get there, then screaming and pulling my hair out until it's over, yes, I am.
Average Chiefs fan experience.
I think that's the most of America watching the Chiefs at this point. Let's be real here.
Hey, just be happy we're also doing the same thing you guys are doing, except we're mad at everything else than the refs.
Exactly. That's usually what happens in these cases. And before any of you ask, any of you viewers or listeners out there, no, Hal and I are not bandwagon fans. So cut it.
Yeah, you can talk to me when you tell me if Brady Quinn ever played for the Chiefs, fellas.
Were you watching in the days of Jackie Battle, of Matt Castle being quarterback? No. Of Tyler Palco.
Do you remember who the tight end was between Travis Kelce and Tony Gonzalez? It was Tony Moyaki. That's right.
Even I know that one just because of the last name.
Do you remember Andy Studebaker on defense?
Yeah, Andy Studebaker on defense, very subpar linebacker. He did his best.
Look, I wish I could say the same for the Bears one of these days when we have to mention Kyle Orton as a quarterback. Shout out to Kyle Orton, by the way. Hey,
shout out Kyle Orton. I will also shout out Kyle Orton.
He was also one of our
good quarterbacks we had in 2011. Anyway, but anyway, that's going to be happening this weekend. We'll see if it dictates our mood next week. But until then, that's going to take us to the end of our show this evening. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and please be kind to one another and be kind to yourself out there. On behalf of my co-hosts Hallie Stepp and Justin Palmer, until next time, this is Sterling Price signing off.